What is that about emotions trapped in the body or not expressed in a healthy way that makes us sick?
It's stress. Is that issue where it was stunning to me that, was it a 2009 UC Berkeley study, found that good relationships can add a decade to your lifespan, potentially. A decade. It was crazy. And then there was a meta review where they look at all the studies about relationships. And what they found is that good relationships are second only to genetics in terms of predicting both health and longevity in humans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so crazy we forget that there's little stressors that build up, and when we don't have a release valve, when we can't talk about things, when we can't share things, when we can't hear that it's normal, it's okay. This is really hard stuff. What was it? The issue of loneliness, the stress hormones that happen, that basically because of loneliness is the equivalent of a physical attack. Loneliness is like getting beat up.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a difference between loneliness and choosing to be alone, to have alone time, to process in a healthy way, and to love on yourself and accept yourself, versus I'm sad and lonely and no one cares about me.
This was some of the most mind-blowing research that I looked at in here, was that issue of what you're describing is the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness, this sounds totally crazy, loneliness before the 19th century basically didn't exist.
We didn't have time to be.
we were so enmeshed in societies. We
Tribes,
were religions, tribes, nations. We always felt a part of something. Even if we weren't close to people, and we usually were, we felt we were a part of something. So Faye Alberti, who is a researcher at University of York, she looked back, and you basically, before the 19th century, you can't hear it mentioned because we were always embedded in a group. When you hear the word lonely, it meant something by itself. It didn't have the negative stigma.
Really?
It wasn't until literally Frankenstein that you heard lonely in the 19th century start to be used as a negative thing, because we had an explosion of individualism, which unlocked a lot of power, a lot of great things in the world, but we felt separate. And second crazy thing, John Cacioppo, leading researcher on loneliness, what he found was that people who are lonely and people who are not lonely spend the same amount of time with others. Lonely people don't spend any more time alone. What he realized was that loneliness is not about proximity. We've all felt lonely in a crowd. You can be in Times Square on New Year's Eve,
feel alone,
and still feel alone. You feel alone on the subway. Loneliness isn't lack of proximity to people. Loneliness is how you feel about your relationships. When you go on a business trip, you might miss your friends and family, but you know they're there. You know they're missing you. You know they don't care about you. You don't feel lonely. You might miss them. Versus if you're surrounded by people, but you think nobody cares, that's when you feel lonely. It's how you feel about those relationships.
How do you shift that feeling? And what if they really don't care? Maybe it's all in your head and you're like, they don't care about me because they're not doing what I want or something. But how do you shift that to create a deeper connection and feeling about, the few key relationships you have at least?
Yeah. I mean, that's where we want to get into time and vulnerability. Those two costly signals.
Spending more time?
Spending time is one of the most powerful signals in a relationship, because time is all the stuff that Dale Carnegie talks about is easy to do. That's why we like it. That's also why manipulators like it. How you show somebody that they're really special is by costly signals. If I spend a lot of time with you, if I spend an hour a day with you, I can only do that for 24 people, and I've got to sleep.
Mm-hmm. So
that says you're special. There's no way around that. Time is costly. Vulnerability, I'm telling you things that could be used against me. That's really, those are powerful signals. And when people reciprocate those signals, we know they're serious. If they're making the time, if they're saying things that maybe they shouldn't say, then these are people who are making the effort. The other thing that's really powerful, I found this fascinating. This was just a study that just came out in 2020, was that if you're not feeling supported enough in your relationships, an easy thing you can do is introduce your friends to one another. Because the issue is there's a synergy. I think that word's often overused, but there's a synergy in that, in the sense of having one-off relationships is great, but once you start introducing your friends, you're creating a community. Your friends can coordinate. Hey, Lewis is feeling down. We should take him out. Now they can work together, and you're creating your own group. You're creating your own community. That is so much more powerful than a lot of one-off relationships where people can't share information
Right.
and say, this is what he needs right now.
That's interesting. That's something I've kind of done intuitively for the last 15 years, which is creating individual relationships and then saying, hey, let's do a dinner together, and kind of bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
And trying to go beyond that by saying, here's why you should know this person, and here's what you can connect on, and here's what they're working on, and here's how you guys could align on this thing. And I think the more you put people together who can benefit each other, whether it be as friends or in business or career, you're adding value to more other people in multiple ways, like you said, the synergistic ways.
Yeah.
I think that just deepens your connection to people too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in terms of the emotions, there's no doubt of having these friends, but also in terms of life success, it's like Mark Granovetter did research on weak ties, and where usually the things our friends know, we usually know. But when you go 1 degree out, those are the things we're not hearing about. Those are the things we're not connected. When you're connecting people with other people that are 1 degree out from you, they're getting new ideas, new potential, new job offers, new opportunities. You're creating this whole network.
You're the center. You're the champion of all these relationships and opportunities.
And that is so valuable for both sides. It's so valuable because it's so much easier for somebody else to just say, sure, I'll come to dinner, than having to organize it themselves. People are really going to appreciate that. But also, as you being the hub of the network, then all roads lead to you.
And it usually pays dividends long term. Not that you're trying to get something out of it necessarily. No. And I think when it's only transactional, it doesn't feel as good. But I've had multiple people that have gotten married and now have kids because I've connected the dots somehow to them, whether they came to an event that I put on, or I introduced them, or something. And so it's like you're creating a legacy in the world. Yeah. Whether you're close with them or not, you're still making an impact in people's lives. And I think good things tend to happen when you impact people in that way long term. Yeah. Well,
you're thinking, you're starting with something positive. You're starting with good intent, and then you're reaching out and doing the work. It makes such a difference. It's like, there's a lot of places that say they want to have impact. It's like, no, let's have positive impact. Let's focus that a little bit more. Right. And it's like, to do that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, not only in terms of, again, relationships and love, but also in terms of career. One of the biggest tips that's come out of research in terms of people networking is there are some people who are superconnectors. There are some people, if you look at your contact list, you will see they introduced you to a disproportionate number of the people you know. Yes. And reaching out to them is a very high leverage way to network better. By creating these things, you're not only bringing people together, doing warm things, you may be helping these people get jobs and opportunities because you're the super connector.
Yeah, Keith Ferrazzi wrote a book called Never Eat Alone, which talks about, I think never having a meal by yourself, but always finding people to connect with and seeing how you can offer value and connecting the dots from previous connections. And the power that comes beyond just personal relationships, but in career, business as well, with that network.
Yeah. No, there's recent research by Nicholas Apley that basically showed we're often reluctant to even talk to strangers in a Starbucks or something like that. We often feel like, we're going to annoy them. And the truth is, that's not the case. When they surveyed people, just saying something small, wow, the line's long, or how can you relate to them? We usually feel better. And when we think about it, like again, to specific, when I did say something, that person said something, we overemphasize the negative. Most of the times when we just say something nice, we reach out, we feel better, they feel better, and sometimes it blossoms into an actual friendship.
Sure. This is powerful stuff, man. I'm curious. How does someone know when they are truly in a loving partnership and this is real love versus chemicals and illusions of love?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, there's going to be the issue of time. For the first 18 months, you are going to have the chemicals. But the truth is, the chemicals usually die down. It's like, so in longer relationships, you are going to get away from the craziness. But what's really powerful, I was surprised when I looked at the issue of love as a feeling. Love makes us nuts. Love makes us absolutely crazy. When you look at the historical documents, go back to 3000 BC in ancient
Wars
Egypt,
and killing and this and that.
love was described as a malady. It was described as a sickness.
Really?
Yes, because it was literally a diagnosable illness. And to this day, if you yes, because we get so nuts. But again,
we don't have reason, right? It's like you got to have some ability to not react and explode over love.
And I was just like, why would they? And the truth is, it makes sense. We talked about earlier, we're in friendship with costly signals. What is a more costly signal than I am running around like a maniac, thinking about you all the time and doing everything? I'm not behaving rationally. What is that? That tells you I am invested. I am serious. I am incapable of callously taking advantage of you because I'm crazy. And they actually tested this. They looked at countries and communities where it was very easy to just ghost someone, and countries and communities where it was very difficult. They had strong network ties. It was hard to ghost. What do you see? Where it's easier to ghost, people, the signal of love, the craziness of love is greater because your brain realizes fundamentally, I need to boost the signal to show the other person I am nuts about them. Love is stronger because it has to communicate. It is a valuable sense. It's a valuable sense to the other person that you are literally crazy about them. And this gets more to your point, the issue of what predicts long-term success in a relationship is you isolate part of that crazy. Idealization. Idealization, seeing that person as better than they are, is not only predicts happiness in a relationship, it predicts the duration and the success of a relationship.
If you see your partner or potential partner as better than they actually are, makes it a better relationship or worse relationship?
It makes it better. It makes it better. You need to see them as better than they are. It is the greatest hallmark of love.
Really?
Yeah, because we can get cynical. Everybody has flaws. When you start making negative assumptions about your partner, that's not a good sign. There's a strong correlation between how people feel on their wedding day and how things work out. Is when people have second thoughts, divorce is much more likely, versus when people have that idealization. You've heard it. When people first start dating, they're over the moon. This person has done everything. They've won Nobel Prizes and gold medals. They are unstoppable. Having some of that and keeping some of that, a little bit of a rational positive. Because the thing is, when they dive down and do the research, these people are not deluded. You realize your partner is imperfect, but you're always willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. You always believe they have the potential. You always believe it's that issue of when they do something wrong, they must be having a bad day. You're compassionate. You give them benefit of the doubt versus the idiot did it again. Those are the things. So that idealization, seeing that person as better than they are, being able to sustain that is a great sign of true love. What does love mean? What does marriage mean? Because it answers so much when you think, and we tend to think,
that everyone thinks the same way as us, the same beliefs, but we don't.
And then you're thinking, oh, I didn't take the trash out, it's not that big a deal, because I don't think it's that big a deal. Whereas your partner sees that as a sign